Hello and welcome to the Cougar Proud Podcast. This is Greg Woods, WSU beat writer for the Spokesman Review, joined as always by Jamey of CougFan.com. And my friend, we have a mountain of things to get to. What's crazy is as few as 3 years ago, we would be starting to get into the time of year where things are kind of slow for football and basketball, but that is not the world we live in anymore.
No, it is not.
So we're kind of in the first few days of spring football, which we're going to get to. We are in the middle of, the portal is not even open for basketball, but we are kind of in that time of year for basketball, which has already come to WSU in a way that's, a bunch of guys are leaving. So we're going to get to all that. We're going to get to, we're going to lead off with some answers to the questions that you guys sent in last night, because we figured that would be kind of what we would talk about anyway. So I might as well get to those right off the bat. So in no particular order, I guess we can just start with some of the portal stuff. I think a lot of people are wondering just like what is going on. What's the reason for guys leaving? Is it the coaches? Is it whatever it might be? And I think before we even one thing I want to make clear before we even answer a question is that I don't want to assume any of the fans or anybody are just dumb, but I feel like people do not realize the extent to which money plays a factor into guys leaving.
Yeah, I mean,
it's huge.
Yeah, there was a time where the coaches, that mattered, right? It mattered. Yeah. You didn't like this coach, you didn't like that coach, etc. It's all financial.
Yep.
I mean, that's what it is. I mean, you can look at the numbers, and it's all money. I mean, money is driving all of this right now, and that's just, and I think in college football, right, it's not regulated by any means, but there's some sort of normalcy in this world, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah,
considering everything else, there is some, you will see guys in college football stay at one school for 4 to 5 years, right? There's not going to be a ton, but they do exist. Basketball is insane. I mean, basketball is on another planet. I mean, Washington State has not had a guy complete a 4-year or 5-year tenure since Jeff Pollard, who finished college in 2019-20. That is the state, and it's not exclusive to Washington State, right? It's happening everywhere. And keep in mind, it's not exclusive to Washington State. It's not exclusive to David Riley. Kyle Smith had the same problems. Mm-hmm. Guys just get bought. Guys get, it's always the next offer. And I mean, it is becoming the norm where guys are going to play 4 schools. It used to be, wow, this guy's on his 4th school in 4 years. Oh, that's a red flag. No, that's just everybody now.
That's just the way it goes now. Yeah.
It used to be, wow, the rarity is a guy who plays for one school his entire career. Now the rarity is, wow, the guy who plays for 2 schools.
It's 2
or more almost all the time.
I can't recall another, the rate at which things are changing and the speed of which the just totality of it all is just crazy. So, so just to kind of recap, so they are, I should have got the number done before we hit record. I believe there are 7 Cougs that have decided to enter the portal. So right now we have Emily Yahoo, Reeve Avers, Parker Garrett's, Case Wynot, Andy Okafor. Is that 5? Who am I missing?
Yalaho, Vavers, Okafor, Wynot, Garrett's, Thraster,
Ugbo, and Ugbo. Right. So 7. Those are the 7, and that is 3 starters between Thrasherson, Okafor, and Vavers. So they're 2 away potentially from having to kind of rebuild their entire starting 5 for what would be the 3rd straight year. Mm-hmm. And of course, 24 is a little bit different because of Kyle going to Stanford. But 3 straight years of having to replace your starting 5 is, that's not very few of this is unique to Washington State, but that might be one that's a little bit unique to them.
Well, and I don't think we're going to sit here and say and put on a charade that there's a good chance Ace Glass goes back, right? I mean, if the money is getting thrown around for some of these other players, what do you think a guy like Ace is going to make, especially considering the youth and what he was able to do and so on? It's hard to see right now. where they'll be able to afford them.
No, yeah, and that's the thing is that like I feel like there is a lot made of like NIL is used in the way to like obviously land guys, but what people I think need to understand, at least when it comes to Washington State, is that like the NIL like it's hard to keep like that. It would be helpful to keep guys like the retention. Obviously, like David Riley has talked ad nauseum about just like the way that would help them on the basketball court. But I like what people I think don't 110% understand is that like that it would be put to great use if to retain guys too, and that's kind of what you're seeing here. Is that the inability to do that?
Well, I mean, you look at the football team, right? I mean, obviously. They get some pretty, between Pinnock and I'm sure, minus Dunk cost a little bit and DJ Warner and some of these other, pretty darn good players. But then they also bring back Kirby Voorhees, Tony Freeman, some of these guys who were pretty prominent players last year. Mm-hmm. But that's just it. I mean, some of the financials go into retention and obviously now that's all going to be going into, our acquisitions and so on, but
right.
There's so much that and I know people are sick of hearing, "Oh, you got to give more money." I mean, that's just the nature of the beast, though. Like
that's just it, yeah.
The cold hard truth is, the money is what matters nowadays to everybody, and that is, there's a pretty direct correlation between who's succeeding and who's gotten the most money.
Yeah, I think Duke topped the NIL charts this season with like I think it was like 12 million or something, and obviously they're one crazy shot away from making the Final Four and just being the best team in the country. So like, and that goes for all the teams that are still alive right now. I mean Michigan obviously and Illinois and
Duke's just so unique because they spend so much of their NIL just on freshmen.
Yeah. And it helps to have Carlos Boozer sending his kids to.
Well, right, but like if you look at like. Did Duke have a transfer this year? Okay, Malik Brown from a couple years ago was a transfer. I think that was it. Evans and Ngongba, the Boozers.
Evans was there.
Foster, Sarr, Kamenya. Like Cameron Sheffield was a former Rice transfer. But they did not, and Jack Scott was a Princeton transfer, but I think he was just a walk-on.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where Duke is so unique in that they just don't use the portal that much, and part of it is because fine, we'll just get the best freshmen in the country every year,
and we'll
develop them, and then we'll keep them.
Yeah.
And okay, we'll graduate you, or we'll send Con Knippel and Cooper Flagg and Maluwach to the NBA, and then we'll replace them with the Boozers, and we'll keep Isaiah Evans. So they're a very unique program in this situation.
Yeah.
And it's also funny because you feel like Duke could go get any portal guy they wanted. Well, that's where Cedric Coward was going, keep in mind.
I was about to bring that up. Like we were, and he made the right decision, obviously, but we were one career decision away from talking about Cedric Coward on this Duke team. Can you imagine that?
Yeah, I do wonder how much their academic standards do play into that, because we know like Stanford has had trouble in the past getting transfers because, they don't budge on academics. I wonder if a school like Duke is maybe in that same realm where it's no, you've still got to get into school because they just don't take that many transfers.
Yeah. Okay, let's answer our first question here, which I feel like would kind of fold nicely into what we were just talking about. Okay, this comes from Russ Hood, who asks, are men's basketball players leaving because of the coach, or is Riley hoping to start over with better players? I mean, the number one thing is what we were just talking about. Like a lot of them are just leaving for more money. Like and we're not saying it's bad either. Like if I've said it a million times, if I was 20, 21 years old and someone showed me $1 million or even like whatever they're getting offered, like I'm doing it. Like I would have liked them to leave. I'd be like, no, I'm loyal to my school. But that's a lot of money for anybody. Especially when you're 20 or whatever. So I think it's you can chime in. I think it's a combination of like, of that obviously, and as far as starting over with better players, he's not going to have much of a choice.
Yeah, so, he's starting over. That's just
that's just the way it is.
It's just money.
Yep. So as much as I know all the Riley haters are going to be like, man, this is they're just they're just telling them how they feel. It's like, maybe that's a small part of it, but I think the bigger part is just they're just getting crazy offers, and I can't blame them for taking them. Okay, we have these two are kind of the same question, so I guess we can just combine it into one from Chilean Coug and PNW Sports and Health. Basically, they're asking if there are any players confirmed to be staying, and
no. I mean, no one has come out and said I'll be back. No one has had the re-sign post,
right?
No one has had Braden Kyman, I think, is the one guy we can say he'll be on the roster next year. As a prep signee, but no, there has not been any official confirmation per se on guys returning.
Because we saw a little bit of that during the football offseason not long after the ball game, where guys would kind of hint on social media like, hey, I'm a Cougar or whatever.
Right. It wasn't just, the re-sign post per se.
Right. And so we haven't seen any of that. And, I mean, there's not even really, assuming Ace Class is gone, which I think is a likely scenario. Outside of that, they have Jerome Morton, who could still very well leave. And then after that, you get into the territory of Dio Blakely, a walk-on. Yeah.
Bruno Mazzu, Dio Blakely. I mean, guys who, haven't played.
Just didn't play.
Literally don't have any minutes.
I mean, Dio Blakely played a few minutes, but besides that.
Yes.
He scored.
I'm sorry. I
don't sell him short.
Dio Erasure. Yeah. No, Dom and Brunel both redshirted.
Right. So that's kind of the situation that they're in. And not that it would make or break the team either way, but not really sure what their plans are.
Right.
So that's kind of where the team is right now. Okay, another basketball question comes from Pat Cougs, who says, is it really worth keeping Riley around for one more year to save $1 million? I understand money is tight, but this sets the men's basketball team back further and will likely result in slim to none for ticket sales.
I mean, I think just the simplistic answer to this is it's honestly a moot point. He's coming. He's going to be the coach next year. I mean, at this point, it's 2 years. I understand, again, the frustrations. I also understand that, a healthy Cedric Coward, and that probably changes some of the dialogue. Now, I don't think there's anyone, including Riley, who is saying no. I mean, Riley said himself this year was unacceptable. He never had a losing season, and what he said to me is he doesn't plan on having one again when I talked to him. But there is an understanding that there is an expectation to go win games next year and take those steps. But in terms of this year, it's a moot point, right? I mean, I personally think he deserves at least a third year to, again, coaching, it doesn't happen overnight, especially when you're losing your entire roster every single year. I mean, even you look at like a Nebraska, for an example, who doesn't deal with that. It took them a while to get to this stage, right? I mean, they were not very good for a while before they finally were able to start making tournaments under Fred Hoiberg. So, and I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen with David Riley in Washington State, but again, he's the head coach for 2026, 27, and that's kind of where the discussion, frankly, stops.
What's interesting, and I mentioned this to you in the SID office the other day, is that for as much as we perceive to be riding on year 3, and in a lot of cases that is a make or break year for coaches that are kind of teetering on the edge and kind of in between. For as much as we perceive to be riding on year 3, they're going to be starting from basically scratch.
Right. I mean, there's two ways to look at that. A, you have no continuity, but on the other hand, it's okay. You can essentially build the roster the way you want to build it. Now, obviously, it's not as simple as they can go get whoever they want out of the portal.
Yeah, right.
But there are going to be so many players in the portal that you are going to be able to find guys that fit what you want to do. Now, again, top guys, that's a different story. But with how many guys are going to be in the portal, there are going to be some very talented players available to Washington State. And it'll be interesting to see how they approach it is it almost makes sense to wait it out a little bit, wait for that first wave of all the big money guys, to go and commit to a school, and then kind of see, okay, who's maybe, that second wave of,
But I don't think they'd be in the first wave anyway.
What I'm saying is instead of just rushing in to try and, scramble to grab guys, kind of see what's there after that first wave. Because as you said, they're the big names, the big superstars, the conference players of the year, those are the guys going to, Michigan and Arizona and all these other schools. It's that next wave. Here's a great example. Rob Martin, right? He was at Southeast Missouri, ends up being a star at High Point. That kind of guy who's not in the first wave, but is in kind of that second or third wave where he's a really talented player, obviously. Do you wait it out a little bit, and instead of maybe making a hasty decision to get a guy who doesn't end up being exactly what you want, you wait a little bit, and there's a guy like that available, and he ends up being a star. So I think it'll be interesting to see how they approach things.
I think that they, in terms of, because I agree with you, I think that they have to be careful. They have to pivot a little bit from the archetype of player that they are looking for, because I think they undersold, like when they were going through their evaluations and looking for guys in the portal around this time last year, they obviously wanted to shore up the defensive rebounding. Like that was like 1A and 1B of things that they needed to improve. Which they did for sure. Yeah. But I think that they, in the course of doing that, the problem that they ran into is I just don't think they were like athletic and offensive oriented enough.
An overcorrection almost, if you will.
Yeah, I've said it 1,000 times. Like they corrected so hard. They wanted so badly to turn around those things, which, like we just said, they did. But it came at the expense of, okay, now we don't have as robust and versatile of an offense that we are used to having with David Riley. So I think that I have no idea who they're going after. The only visit we know of right now is the kid from Central Washington, Jordan. What is that right? Jordan? God, I should know this.
Jordan Clark.
Jordan Clark. Okay. So yeah, that's the only guy that we know publicly that they are interested in. He's visiting sometime soon. But I don't really. I mean, to be honest, I just think that whoever they go after needs to be a little more athletic. I'm not trying to diminish the guys that were on the team this year, but it was clear throughout watching the team this year that they just were not. They didn't have enough shot creation outside of ace class. Right. When you have one guy that you can depend on to handle the ball and also create, they don't need to have 5 ace classes. They need to have someone that you trust to, one, create your own shot, but also I don't know, just be a well-rounded basketball player. And I think they just kind of went too hard on the defensive rebounding thing, and they just couldn't score, which you never thought you'd say about a David Riley team.
Well, the big thing I would say, and this is something I've talked about in the past when it's come to football, is you look at the Moneyball model, right? And I love the pull this a bit. When I would talk about replacing Ron Stone and Brennan Jackson, I'd say you replace them on the aggregate because you're not going to get 2 11.5 tackle for loss guys out of the portal. Mm-hmm. It's obviously not as cut and dry when replacing on the aggregate in basketball, but you've got to find that market inefficiency, right? Where is there? Is it D2 players? Is it guys who are transferring down? Reclamation projects? Is it some freshmen who are getting ignored because the portal is so big? That's how you have to find, I think, some of the players that you're looking for to succeed. It's the quote in Moneyball: if we try to win like the Yankees in here, we will lose to the Yankees out there. I think for Washington State, if you're in the quote unquote the war room, or you're making these decisions, if you try to win like Gonzaga and you try to win like San Diego State and these teams who have much bigger budgets and a lot more money, you will lose to them on the floor and that was, I think, what killed Ernie Kent at Washington State. He tried to build the rosters the same way he did at Oregon, but he couldn't get those same players. He wasn't getting the Aaron Brookses of the world where you're getting NBA-type talents every year. And I think that's what killed him is he tried so hard to just build what he did at Oregon, and that's just not how you win. You look at what Kyle Smith did and just the variety of ways that he amassed talent, whether we're talking international kids, obviously did a great job recruiting freshmen. D2 transfer, Idaho transfer. It's you have to find that kind of that path forward that works for you, and that maybe is going down, turning over some stones that people haven't necessarily, the no stone left unturned, going down or going off the beaten path and figuring out a way to build a roster that doesn't, try and just replicate what teams with more money are doing.
I think totally. And I think they just need an identity. Because on one hand, you're tempted to just say, okay, their identity is obviously this like offensive oriented pace and space arena react system that Riley has run since he's been a head coach. But they swerved so far in the other direction this season that now you're kind of resetting, okay, like what actually is their identity? What's the kind of guy that they're actually looking for in the portal? So I don't know. Like it's easy to say like, oh, they just got to get guys that are a little more offensive oriented, but also like play defense. But I just think that they need to kind of like he's at a weird point in his career where he doesn't have the luxury of having guys that he's known for a million years in the program, and now he's kind of it's almost like he hasn't kind of rediscover an identity and kind of what works not only for him but like the kind of guy that you can afford to get at Washington State in 2026. So. So it's almost like a reset of identity, I guess, in some ways.
I want here's my idea. Just get a bunch of really smug guys that just make everyone mad and win on technical free throws.
Yeah, like 12-day Eric Strips.
Who just have the kind of the smug smile and just win on technical free throws. Just talk a lot of trash and just make everyone really mad. The way that the football team did this past year, just piss everybody off.
We need as many inter-practice beefs as possible. We need guys cussing each other out.
The kid who was at Drake, Connor Enright. Get those type of kids the type of kids who, when you get to the tournament, become folk heroes because they just shoot threes and talk a lot of smack. That's the type of kid. Just build that roster.
The guys that you hate playing, but you want on your team.
Exactly.
A bunch of Alex Caruso's on the Thunder right now.
Bingo. I'll take your word. I know who he is, but
yeah. A&M wasn't he on that A&M team that had the crazy comeback in the tournament?
Yes, and I had Northern Iowa winning that game, so I'm very unhappy about it.
Everything was back to
my bracket,
your bracket, and fantasy football when it comes to football.
No comment on fantasy football.
It's a sensitive subject right now.
I didn't win, which means it's a sensitive subject.
Okay. Well, I see the way it works now. Okay, let's see any more basketball questions. Oh, here we go. This comes from Sean. It says, any juice behind the Miles Rice return rumors? Are you guys, and then I guess as another part of the question, are you guys taking the over or under on 1.5% chance the Ace stays in Pullman one more year?
I'll take 1.6% chance.
No, you're not on a limb.
You never know until it's out there. I think we could both agree. We would be pretty surprised if Ace Glass was in Pullman next year.
I would Venmo you like $50 if you.
And to be fair, I would have said that after he had 40 against Arizona State. I mean, it kind of been the feeling of, he's, especially when you consider a guy who was committed to Texas A&M, who already is probably on the radar a little bit of the Power 4 teams, and then is only a freshman, so he's got 3 years.
Yeah.
You can put 2 and 2 together, right? Maybe something crazy happens. Maybe Ace just loves Pullman and wants to stay, or maybe they find some kind of, money to keep him, but it would be a pretty considerable surprise, I think, at this point if he was back. As for the Miles Rice thing, first off, I want to just establish, I don't think it's not a rumor.
This is
He made an Instagram post that had a bunch of pictures in it, et cetera, et cetera. Now, do I think there's a chance Miles leaves Maryland? Yeah, I mean, he was hurt all year. He barely played. Do I think that theoretically he could come back? It would depend. Again, Washington State does not have the money to necessarily give Miles Rice.
Yeah.
But Miles Rice has now played 3 years of college basketball, and only one has really gone well for him. It was a tough year at Indiana for him and the team. Obviously, the Maryland thing didn't work out. It's a different coach, obviously. Although I know him and Riley did obviously talk because Riley came in as Miles was going out. So maybe, he says, it's my last year playing. These fans love me. I'd be a cult hero kind of thing. Maybe I just want to go back and play somewhere where I love playing. Do I think that's going to happen? It's hard to say. Again, money does talk, and that type of player with the established name that he has is still probably going to command some money. But I'll say this. It's not a 0% chance. I don't know if it's a great chance.
Yeah, I mean, just like this all comes from just like an Instagram post where people are latching on to like, oh my God, he posted pictures of when he was at Washington State, but he also posted pictures of when he was at Indiana and Maryland. So yeah. But wait, I get it. It's a fun thing to entertain, but I would be surprised. But honestly, and the thing about, not to jump around too much, but the thing about Ace is that we both agree that he's out of here in all likelihood. But the thing is that like I think there's a sense that he's just going to command like $1 trillion. I think that the market for small guards might not be like as completely insane as some people are making it out to be. Like, because as phenomenal as, I'm not trying to diminish what he can do, he's still going to make it who oodles of money, and he will probably not be playing for WSU next year. But I just think it's interesting to kind of look at the profile of player he is and kind of evaluate what kind of money that would demand. Because obviously, like, the scoring is going to get him tons of money, and we both agree on that. But I think that the market for small guards who are not like defensive oriented either is like not as like crazy as you might expect. Because there's this kind of sense he's going to make $1 trillion and go to, wherever. But I do think there is something to be said that, like, in some crazy alternate bizarro world where he ends up staying, like, I don't think it wouldn't take Klay Thompson sending him $10 million over Venmo to get him to stay. You know what I mean?
But I think we're probably talking in the multi-million-dollar range.
For sure. I would if I had to like guess a number, I would say between like 1.5 and 2.
Right. The interesting thing about Ace, though, and this is to your point, is he's a smaller guard. He also doesn't get to the free throw line, or at least he didn't really this year. Mm-hmm. I mean, 95 attempts is not a particularly high number considering his usage rate. So that is something that I do find interesting is, a lot of, those smaller guards, what makes them so deadly is the fact that they just get to the line almost at will. I mean, you look at like Jeremy Fears, for example, who he's a small guard at Michigan State, but 208 free throw attempts.
Jeez. And what did Ace have, like 90 something?
Huh?
And you said Ace had like 90 something?
Ace had sub 100. He had, now a lot of that is Washington State took a lot of threes as a team.
Yeah.
But, 95 total free throw attempts this year, which by the way led the team.
Well, that's that. Yeah, the bar is extremely low at this
which
point,
again is shot. As a team, you shot a lot of threes. So
yeah. So okay, let's see. Any more basketball questions before we move on to and on to football? I guess the last one would be someone is correcting my grammar when I asked for questions. Apparently, it was supposed to be any questions for Jamey and me, which I actually. He's right, but it's right. Whatever.
He is right.
Whatever. All right, I can't argue that. Yeah. Shut up. Anyway, he says the next part of his question is, anyway, can you play basketball? David Riley may need you.
We can hoop.
I can hoop. You don't even hoop anymore. You don't even come.
That's fair. That's fair.
Actually, the last question actually for basketball that I wanted to get to is, wait, I could have sworn I saw a question about guys coming to the rec and playing. Am I hallucinating that? I could have sworn I saw that. Okay, maybe I did. Oh, I could have sworn that was real, but maybe it was deleted. I don't know. Anyway, by the way, I go there a lot, and we've been keeping it competitive, even against the guys that are going. So, maybe if worse comes to worse, cut the check. I still have some college eligibility. I haven't played any. All right, let's move on to some football questions, and then because there's plenty of stuff to get into with that. Okay. Basically, okay, here we go. Let's start with kind of a basic one that we can kind of just like jump off with. Let's see. This comes from Chad Keba. It says, would love to hear about the guys in the secondary the coaches have been impressed with. Might be a better question for Coach Trent Bray, but given the depth and amount of snaps across the linebacker core, will we see 3 linebacker sets on occasion? So what are our impressions of defense so far?
Yeah, I mean, starting kind of with the secondary, We actually haven't really talked to Kirby Moore that much about a lot of the DBs, but they've made some plays. I mean, there's been interceptions just about every day, and obviously, that's always the dichotomy of good on the defense, not so good on the offense. But it's spring ball; everyone's going through the drills and so on. But I think the secondaries look solid. I think they certainly have some size at safety. Again, when you look at a Jeremiah Bernard and I think Frosto Ramos has some good size and. I think they're going to be, I think, a lot bigger in the secondary than they were last year. Now, granted, I'm not saying that that's a good or bad thing. Their secondary last year was excellent. I mean, Tucker Large and Colby Humphrey are not the biggest guys in the world. Durant's obviously had some size, but that was a really good secondary.
But they were,
Worthy is not a big guy, and he was good. Even Jamori Colson, I mean, he's tall, but he's not all that,
big.
Strong. Yeah. I was going to say strong. That would not be a fair assessment. Not all that, heavy or, size-wise, but was really good. So I think it'll be a little different where they're going to have that physicality, especially at the safety position. But, I think they've looked solid so far.
Yeah. I've definitely been impressed with just the interceptions that are being made. Like, I think yesterday, today's Wednesday. Yeah, yesterday we had a pick from oh God, who did pick one off?
Ridley. Trey Ridley.
Yeah, Trey Ridley. There was one from
DJ Warner and the other.
DJ Warner, and I think that would have been a linebacker. Yeah, we should talk about him because I think his story is like totally fascinating. Where outside of the 1 year he spent at a low level Power 4 school like Kansas, outside of that, he has just been making some great decisions career wise. So, but like in all seriousness, we've talked about just how he played a lot of edge rusher at SMU and at KU, which I was thinking that was kind of what he would play when he came here, just because of like the athleticism and size that would really lend itself to getting into the backfield. But what we've seen is just like some awesome coverage skills, which was a little bit of a question mark for him coming in, which is like, how would he be able to adapt? And so far, so good for him.
Well, right. I think part of what, attracted him to Washington State is he wanted to play linebacker, like an actual linebacker rather than a pass rusher. And Wazoo said, okay, fine. But I think that obviously, to your point, begged the question of, okay, what can this guy do in coverage? I mean, you look at his PFF numbers, 246 career pass rushing snaps, just 41 in coverage. So there's not much to go off of. And I think the pass rushing comes very natural, or very naturally to him. But, the play he made, it wasn't like, okay, ball comes right to him. And he had to break in on a route and make a move to pick off the ball. I mean, it was an impressive play for any linebacker, let alone a guy who's by trade been more of a pass rusher. So he's looked really good. I mean, he looks the part, obviously, 6'4", 229 pounds. Again, talking about a guy who was a top 100, top 75 recruit coming out of high school. So there is certainly some talent. And he's one of those guys that you hear this phrase kind of get thrown around. But you start to wonder, you start to wonder what happens as he realizes just how good he can be. And I think this shift to more of a natural linebacker is going to help him with that realization, because I think you can see the signs early on of what could be a really spectacular player.
Well, and they almost need him to be awesome, because I think, as we talked about last week, is that if there's one position, at least on defense, that you would peg as not being super deep, it is the linebacker core, because you have him, you have Keith Brown, you have Nyland Brown, and those are the three that we assume will be starting. I guess they're running the 4-2-5, so maybe two of those guys, but whatever. Like, those are your top three guys. And after that, it's a lot of question marks, a lot of just inexperience.
Right.
So,
I mean, you've got guys who I think there's some who Gage Jones and Jack Ellison have played, not a ton, but they have played. No. But then, to your point, it's okay. Can an Isaiah Hung or a Karsten Reynolds, can one of those guys, make a jump? Can an Aramis Wright make a jump? And I think that's where there is, as you said, that question mark, where you've got two guys who have proven they can play linebacker at the college level. DJ Warner has proven he can be a pass rusher at the college level, still has to kind of prove he can really play that stand-up linebacker spot. But then after that, it's like, okay, there's a lot of guys who maybe have seen the field, maybe have played some special teams, but not a lot of true linebacking experience.
Well, and even like we both think that Keith Brown's going to be great, but even he was out for the entirety of last year,
right?
And then his one season here, it was more of a coming on strong toward the end of the season as a pass rusher kind of a role. I mean, I don't. And then you go back to his days at Oregon, and going back to like 20. Well, he barely played at Louisville at 23. So, I mean, you would literally have to go back to like his days at Oregon at like 21 and 22 to like find like a full season of action. And even then,
he's been around college football now this will be his 6th year in college football. He only has 518 snaps. He was kind of a rotational guy at Oregon, didn't play much at Louisville, and then was a rotational guy at Washington State. So he's got the experience in terms of he's been around the game. But it's not like he has played all that much. I mean, you compare him to like Nyland Brown, for example. Nyland Brown's in his 3rd year of college football, and he's got 421 snaps. So they're kind of both of, there is experience, and obviously 400 to 500 snaps is not nothing. But we're not talking about necessarily, guys who have over 1,000 snaps of experience. Like you look at even when you bring in Caleb Franzel last year, who at points was a backup, there was still looking at the numbers, he was still going in with 1,000 snaps.
Jeez.
So it is an actually 1,001 exactly. But it is an interesting kind of just thing to consider that these guys have been around college football, but haven't necessarily played an extensive number of snaps.
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, before we let go of the Nyland Brown thing, I think he's going to be awesome.
I just wrote about him. You can check that out on CougFan.com.
Never fails.
Yeah, but the build is just incredible. I mean, he is built like, I'd say like a linebacker. I guess that's kind of the, when you talk
like the position he plays.
Right. But it's just, he's not all that tall. I think 5'11" is what he's listed at, but broad shoulders, very well put together. And I think he's the type of guy that it looks like, if he hits you, it's going to hurt.
Mm-hmm. Well, and if I we've talked so much about how they kind of need a lot of these guys to pop that they brought in from the portal. It's because of like how many ton of question marks there are about their experience. If there's one guy that they brought in, at least on defense, I would be like, okay, he's going to be great, and I'm not worried about it. It's probably him, to be honest. Just because of his experience, he's like super articulate and thoughtful, and I think that goes a long way toward just kind of knowing what you're capable of and kind of just doing your thing and kind of staying in your role. So he's going to be great, and I'm excited to keep covering him. Okay, next question comes from Julie. It says, what are your impressions of spring football, differences in coaching style from last year?
Well, we get to watch spring football, so there's that.
We got to watch spring football last year.
Sure we did. For those who don't know, spring football was closed outside of, I think, 3 Saturdays, whereas this year it's open again. So I think, I think last year, and I've written about this too, is they were so intense last year in terms, they were dust-ups and scraps. I guess, again, maybe not so much in the spring. Again, we didn't see a lot of the spring, but in fall camp, it was just the intensity. It was just on another level. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing because that was just how that. But it's a lot more. There's still intensity. I'm not saying they're just lollygagging through practice, but it's a lot more of a lighter atmosphere this year. It was almost tense at times last year, and maybe some of that was because the last staff was so Big Brother-esque, have their eyes on everything that's getting said, looked at, etc. Whereas, obviously, Kirby has said, there's certain things like, hey, after, period 9, we'd appreciate if you guys didn't film, don't film formations, just stuff like that, which is, that's natural.
I think it's fair, yeah.
Yeah. And I'm certain, if an injury happens during practice, it's kind of the unspoken of don't say anything about it, just see where it's at the next practice because, sometimes a guy looks like, oh God, he's torn his ACLs out for the year, and then he's out there the next day. So it's right. Not a big deal. But it's just a lot more, again, of a relaxed environment where, I think you and I are able to kind of watch and observe practice without feeling like there is someone peering over our shoulder, checking us at every sentence, checking us at every, note we make.
I actually have not brought this up to you. I feel much more just like welcome at practice this spring than I did last year. Like I feel much more. I feel, and not just in the sense of like I'm there and I can do my job the way I see fit, but I feel much more comfortable just kind of like treating it as like, okay, I'm there to watch practice and cover it and see what happens. But I feel much more welcome and comfortable just like kind of chatting people up that are just like, whether it's like front office people or you know what I mean, I just feel like that's like much more like I don't know about encouraged, because they're there to do their job, and I'm not trying to like distract them, but I just like the general vibe. I think lends itself much more to working together, and they're not working together because I'm not doing their carrying water for them, but like it's much more like welcoming and kind of open ended, I would say.
Well, I think that's just that's the juxtaposition of one staff says, yeah, come to every practice. The other staff says, no, we're only allowing you to be at 3. I mean, I think without saying it, it was the, and look, I'm not saying they said, no, we don't want media at practice because we don't like the media, but it was clear that I think it was clear that last year, the 3 practices we got was their concession of, okay, fine, we'll let a little, I think if they were told you have complete autonomy of your decision, it would have all been closed. We would have gotten nothing, maybe not even the spring game. Whereas this year, it feels very much like, yeah, everyone come to practice. We've got the open practices in Pasco and Spokane. We want everybody there. Like they want the visibility on their program, and they want people to get to know the players and get to know the coaches. I mean, we talk about the practice in Pasco on Saturday. You got the GM, Brad LaRondo. He's on, the microphone explaining every drill, every transition, and I thought it was great. I mean, for obviously we're seeing, we see what they do on a day-to-day basis, but if you're a fan there, it's like, okay, now they're doing this, and hey, this is what we're working on. I thought that was a great thing, and that they did, and I think it very much helps connect the fans to the team on the field of, okay, this is what they're doing now.
It is remarkable, just like how low the bar has been lowered, just like the standard for stuff like that. Because I feel like it's awesome, like what they've done in terms of like accessibility and kind of the overall vibe. But it shouldn't represent some giant change from even a year ago. But we're at a place now where
I think even to that point, like it was. We were always welcomed at all of Dickert's practices and so on, but but it was. I mean, they didn't do anything like that. And I'm not saying like, oh, that's a damnation of them. I just think it's a unique idea that I had never really seen anyone do. Is have someone literally explaining to the fans in attendance each drill and what they're trying to do.
Yeah, that was cool. So yeah, and I also just think for like just. Finally, on this point, like I think they're totally making the right decision with this approach, because they're not at, and I've probably mentioned this before on previous episodes, but Washington State is not at a point with its football program in 2026 where they can afford to be so like tight-lipped and invisible to the fan, to the media, to the public. Like that's not like, that would not be in their best interest. Like they need eyes, they need visibility. That's why they chose a lot of the like TV networks to work with this season. They kind of valued visibility over profits to some extent, because they're like, hey, we cannot afford to just like, in this era and where we are as a university, as an athletic program, we are not in a position where we can just kind of be invisible and kind of, in whatever form that takes. So I think this is the right way to go about it, because like we mentioned before, like spring football, there's nothing to really criticize them over right now, like for people like you and I. So really, there can only be really, like unless something crazy happens, there could only be really positive coverage to come from at least people like you and I, because it's just spring football. They're kind of just, installing things. We're getting to know the new players, that kind of thing. So I think this is the completely the right way to do things.
Well, I think too, especially last year, I mean, is you get a coach that really no one knew. I mean, people knew the South Dakota State program, but no one knew who Jimmy Rogers was, the common fan at least. Whereas, it would have probably behooved them to like, hey, get yourself, present this. This is the program. This is what people know for the most part who Kirby Moore is, right? There is a knowledge of that name throughout the Washington State fan base, whether it's from his time as a player, his time as a coach, the fact that he's from Prosser, the fact that his older brother's the head coach of the Saints and was, a legendary Boise State quarterback. Like, people sort of know who he is. And I think he's just adding to that visibility. But to that point last year is you're a brand new coach that nobody knows. Like, I mean, again, it's all hindsight now, but you probably should have wanted to get yourself out there a little bit more and really kind of, immerse yourself into this fan base. And I think as we see now, based on the tenure, that never really mattered much to him.
Yeah, that was just a strange, because that kind of what am I trying to look for? Like that kind of level and like that approach could maybe be afforded when you've been here for 2 years and you're like, okay, I'm kind of getting tired of doing the whole shit. But like your first year as an unknown coach, and it's just like, yeah, we're kind of just going to be a little bit, closed off, and as a general vibe is like, I mean, thing is that like I think we both agree that he's going to be a good coach at Iowa State. Like a lot of for as much as we criticize them over just like things like that, like they were a couple games away from pulling 2 huge upsets on the road last season, and maybe he's gone anyway. But maybe it's not like as easy to criticize them over that when they're beating Ole Miss and or Virginia if they were able to pull those games off.
I think just to that point, I do think he's a good coach. I mean, I don't think that should, So again, as you said, some of our comments shouldn't be confused with that. I don't know if that personality would have fit long term in Pullman. They need this school and this program with everything that's gone on and just their natural position needs a coach who is out there and is public. I mean, it is why, despite maybe some of his shortcomings as an in-game manager and so on, why Jake Dickert at the time that it happened was the perfect fit for Washington State. And again, we can go over all the things that maybe cast some doubt upon him. And I know, again, he was an unceremonious departure. People didn't like the motorcycle picture and the plane and all that. But this program needs someone like that, whether it's the quirks of Mike Leach or even, in all honesty, the quirks of Nick Rolovich, or just the out there and very kind of available personality of Jake Dickert. And I think, I don't think Kirby Moore is quite to the Dickert rah-rah, but he's visible, right? He's out there. He is making himself a public figure around the Washington State community that fans, students, and so on can get to know.
Yes. Even just doing things like having a practice in Pasco just shows a willingness to like go a little bit above and beyond and say like, hey, like obviously part of it is like it's close to his hometown and that's part of the reason why they did that. But it's also like there are a lot of, I'm sure there's tons of Coug fans in the Tri-Cities in that area that don't often get that kind of opportunity to see their guys, see their team practice. And so even like a gesture like that, I think goes a long way.
And I will give the Rogers staff credit for that because they did take a practice to Spokane.
Yeah. But that was kind of a thing, or maybe that wasn't a thing before.
They used to do a spring game in Spokane, but I don't think there was a practice in Spokane under Dickert.
Okay. Well,
which again, I'm not complaining about. That's an hour and a half less of driving, but.
Well, I mean, credit where it's due. That's a good point. And for the last thing on this, I will say it till the cows come home and I'm 85 years old.
Well, you just said till the cows come home, so I think you are 85 years old.
If anybody's 85 years old here, it's you, my friend.
Hey. Easy now.
You drink black coffee like it's like...
I mean, I digress. To your point, what were you going to say?
What was I going to say? What I was going to say was that it's just kind of what you said earlier. Like, for as much as fans are right to criticize or like not be happy with the way that Jake Dickert left and his coaching mistakes and all these kinds of things, he is who they needed at that point in their university's history.
100% agree.
He is who they needed. Regardless of how that 23 season went, he is who they needed at that point. And I think as time goes on, fans will that'll kind of land more with more fans. I think so.
That I don't agree with, but
no, okay. Well,
Washington State fans are a bitter bunch.
That's true. Maybe I
don't know how much of forgiveness there will be.
Well, so. I'm doing my part at least. How about that? Okay. Let's see. Some next football questions. Okay, this is football, not spring football, but just football in general. I'm going to the K-State game. Does WSU benefit if I purchase tickets from the WSU website versus a third-party site? What you should actually do is purchase tickets from the K-State official site.
Don't do that. Absolutely don't do that. I think benefits.
No, I think it does, because like the tickets that are on like StubHub and places like that originally come from the actual website, I believe. So
I'm not a master on ticketing, but yeah, I would think
yeah, because if you get it on StubHub, most of the money's going to the guy that sold it to you, versus WSU. You're
oh yeah, obviously, yeah. No, dude, buy it from Washington State if you're trying to benefit Washington State.
Yeah, or K-State if you're so inclined.
No.
Nah.
Greg hates the Cougs, trying to market to the rival or the opponent.
I'm trying to throw you off the scent by just talking about a different school, but really it's all about hating the Cougs. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, this is a little bit football adjacent as well. Who, if anybody, sorry, this comes from Philip Mazurek. Hope I'm saying your name right. He says, who, if anybody, really showed out during pro day and helped their draft stock?
Colby Humphrey.
Yeah, that's what I was
going to say. Did that tweet yesterday?
Yes.
I mean, he's getting measured in. I think they had him at about a 4.3. A 10.5 long jump. I mean, now I got to go find who tweeted it so I can give proper credit.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, it was Aaron Wilson of what outlet is he with? He is with KPRC2 in Houston. Covers the NFL and the Texans, but so that Colby ran a 4.32 to 4.34, 10.5 broad jump, displayed excellent athleticism. Team captain who lines up outside and slot, could play safety. Is gaining momentum in the NFL draft process. Mentioned the Seahawks as well. So again, not sure if that pushes a guy into getting drafted, but I think certainly, between him and the fact that, Angel Johnson running a 4.3, hopefully for them, guys who at least have put themselves on the radar to where they could get looks.
The unfortunate part for them for this pro day is that I think Tucker Large could have. I mean, if there's anybody from last year's team that stood any chance of getting drafted, I think it would have been Tucker Large. The problem is, obviously, unfortunately for him, he got hurt during the bowl game and wasn't able to participate on Monday and pro day. He was there. Just not able to go. So, the thing is that I think we counted six scouts from NFL or 6 NFL teams that were represented there, which this is my first one that I've covered. And you said that previously it was up to all but one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So which I guess just kind of speaks to the fact that a lot of their best guys are seniors and guys that don't have some surefire draft upside the way that Kyle Williams and who am I blanking on from last year? Oh, Esapole.
Yep.
So which is not it's not a shot at anybody. I just sometimes they had plenty of good players. It's just sometimes when you're 22, 23 and you've been around, it's not really doesn't really lend itself to. And you know more about this than I do, but I mean that's just kind of the way it goes with pro drafts. Is that you want to be young and awesome right away, and that's just kind of not the kind of team they had last year. So
correct.
So yeah, I guess to answer your question, it'd be Colby Humphrey if we had to pick one guy. I honestly would not be totally floored if someone took a flyer on Angel Johnson or somebody like that toward the back end of the draft.
You just kind of see what he did at South Dakota State and say, okay, maybe, there's a better way to use him out in space, kind of as a scat back, something along those lines.
Yeah. So, and then I believe there's a couple more that we can get to. This is taking up the whole episode. This is crazy.
We kind of covered everything we were going to cover anyways. Yeah.
Exactly. Okay, not last one, but a couple of last ones we have. Hi, Red. My dog is right here. There was one more football one that it was talking about, okay. This comes from Caleb Henson, Coach Caleb Henson. Sorry, didn't mean to sell you short. Says, I think this is one of the best rosters that we have fielded in several years, with the depth and size of both offensive and defensive lines standing out. Do you guys think there's any chance of this group contending for the G5 playoff berth?
I mean, yeah, I think there's a chance. I mean, I think it's hard to say with, again, a first-year head coach and, basing it off 3 spring practices. But, I think based on the talent they brought in, I mean, I think they'll have a shot. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say they're going 13-0 and they're automatically going to get it. There's going to be tough games. I mean, between Boise State and San Diego State, those are good teams. And, they obviously do not play the easiest non-conference in the world. But, I think there will be a shot. If they, I'll say this, they obviously pretty much have to mostly run the table in the Pac-12, if not run the table. They can do that and get 1, maybe 2 of those 3 non-con games. Arizona, K-State, UW, obviously Duquesne as well. I think that's where you put yourself in position of, okay, there could be a real shot at that. You lose all 3, it becomes tough because then it's, okay, you beat your conference. Now, they go 9 or 8-0 in conference and they beat Duquesne. It's like, well, so who knows? But there will be a team who does go undefeated, who doesn't play anyone that tough, but then goes 12 or 13-0, and then it's like, well, then you're in a tough spot in that. So they probably need to get one of those Power 4 teams.
Well, and I think within the team itself, I've said this before, but I think that there's a lot of variance, I think, with the way this season could go, just by virtue of the nature of the guys that they brought in. Like I mentioned before, a lot of former Power 4 guys that were heavily recruited at a high school that didn't really see the playing time that they thought they would see at wherever they went, and then they're trying to kind of get back on the field now at Washington State. The question is, are those guys still as awesome as they kind of projected to be when they were coming out of high school, or are they kind of plateauing a little bit, or are they not are they not going to pop the way they expect them to? I think if they hit on a certain amount of those guys and they end up being great, their season could be awesome, and we could be talking about that by the end of the season. On the other hand, if they end up missing on some of these guys that end up playing prominent roles, it's like, okay, now we can swing the other direction where things aren't going as well as we would hope them to. So, and that's just kind of the bet that I think, I don't know, they wouldn't say this publicly, but I think that's just kind of the bet that they made with this type of roster construction that they did over the offseason. Is hey, we're going to see if these guys can be awesome. A lot of them aren't as experienced as we would hope them to be, but if they're awesome, then we're going to be great. And if not, we won't be as great. So only time will tell, I guess.
Right.
So, okay. Okay. I guess we can finish up with one of the questions, one of the freaking 15 that Zach Young sent us. Zach Young asks a bunch of questions in here, and a lot of them are related to ticket prices and things like that. Okay, here's one that's more kind of wide ranging and basic. It says, what do you think can be done to increase student attendance at the games? I'm not sure if he means football or basketball, but I guess both are applicable.
It's tough. I mean, it's the simple answer is winning, but even that, as we've seen, doesn't necessarily do everything. I mean, I look back at the 2024, they're 8-1 with I think it was Utah State in town, and just weren't that many people there. I mean, I think the unfortunate world you live in, 20,000 for that game. They were number 21 in the country. The unfortunate world you live in is the new. I mean, maybe now having some continuity with the schedule will be good.
But I mean, I think that we are in this transitional period, and maybe it'll extend for 2 or 3, 4 or 5 more years. But we're in this kind of transitional period where fans, and understandably so, are obviously still a little bit miffed about the Pac-12 falling apart, and now all of a sudden we have Louisiana Tech and Utah State coming to town. So I think once the new Pac-12 people kind of get used to the reality and this is kind of where we're at now, and this is kind of our future, I think the attendance might just kind of naturally go back up. And they still need to do more to get people going to the games, but I think there's kind of part of it is a product of kind of just where they're at right now, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's more interesting to see Boise State, who you're going to play every year.
Yeah.
Than, like you said, Toledo, Louisiana Tech. But, it's tough because, again, You're not getting Oregon or USC or Washington. I mean, I guess you get Washington every other year for now, but they just don't. You don't have the naturally built-in exciting games. And I think when you look to that last game, after Thanksgiving, people aren't making that trek necessarily for Oregon State.
Right.
They would for Washington, but it's a tougher sell for Oregon State unless it's really they're competing for a Pac-12 title game or a Pac-12 playoff berth or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I just like part of it is just kind of the natural, like you said, kind of natural product of for a million years we were hosting USC and Oregon and UCLA. Now we have Louisiana Tech. No disrespect to Louisiana Tech, but there's not the name recognition that some of those schools can provide. So
exactly.
So that's just kind of where they're at. Well, I think that somehow we made it a full hour without getting breaking news about Ace Glass or Jordan Morton, whoever, hitting the portal. So maybe we should cut our losses and get ready for that whenever that might come out.
What day is the portal close? Yeah, that's when it'll come out.
April. Yeah,
Ace will wait to the last minute.
We were talking about this the other day. How somehow Ace Glass is going to end up being one of the last ones to make this announcement if that's the way things end up going. So
right.
But yeah, I think I think that is just about all the questions we got. We have one that says, I'm not even going to say these words from Tommy Bahama because I'm not sure if they're appropriate for a podcast. I don't know what they mean. They're not swear words, but I just they're like some Gen Z mumbo jumbo. I don't even know. So, but besides that, I believe we answered all of these. Besides, Marty asked, any summer plans? Got anything crazy planned for the summer? Mariner
games, golf, go to Chelan, bachelor party at the end of May in Arizona, which will involve more golf.
Let's go.
Yeah.
You're like a golf guy now.
Well, I enjoy it. I'm not good at it, but I enjoy it.
I didn't say you were good at it. I'm just saying that was not a thing when I first got here.
That is definitely new. Started playing last spring.
And, are you getting any better?
I mean, a little. I'm gonna get lessons here as it gets nicer.
Okay.
And hopefully playing more this summer will help me get better. But no, not particularly good.
All right. Well,
it's fun. I enjoy it. I love it.
I played mini golf. But that's about my golf experience.
That was mine. So.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get out of here. We answered all your questions. So thank you guys for sending those in. And Jamey, I will talk to you next week.